thing you saw it though.
It's a glitchy thing that happens in zip forms. It happened to me before too.
Really?
Yeah. And I had to like go
Like
back
that's-
out and change it.
Okay, so I would suggest you hit the save button. Somewhere up here is a save button. No,
Save as
That's-
PDF?
no, the save isn't even
It's-
lit up, so it
it's,
has to be somewhere.
It's above the
Oh,
word
I can click
realtors,
it.
it's in blue.
Oh, yeah, save above.
Yeah, I can't click the save button, so I don't know why I can't. And then get out, move back, get out of the transaction, or out of the,
Click the green button, correct?
click the green button, go back, get out of the form and go back in and see if that fixes it.
Marion, if we were trying to put it 2 days after J1 inspection, would you give 2 weeks for the inspection to take place and then when you're taking out a date? I'm trying to figure out if we were trying to, we put the additional deposit 2 days after J1, when would we anticipate that would be in the month of November since we're opening or making our purchase contract today?
Okay, so why do we, what I think you're trying to ask is why are we using number of days after J1 acceptance versus a date?
No, I know the reason, I know that you do it as after J1 if you're gonna have a J1. I'm just wondering how long you would expect a J1 to take to be inspected and approved. so
Well,
that
ours
we-
is filled in at 14 days.
14, okay, because I was looking at the calendar going, okay, we're opening this on the 8th, let's say by the 25th, we'd be done with J1 and
So
all.
you're a little ahead of yourself.
Oh, sorry, okay.
You're just way ahead of
Okay, I'm being
yourself.
quiet now.
Because what if they extend J1? You have no idea how that's gonna play out. And we have another question that we have to address anyway, so what's that?
Get me back to that screen.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I think
Where
I
did you
took
go to
all the
documents?
numbers out and put them in again and it worked last time.
Here is your purchase.
Gotcha.
So you're in this, whoops.
Oh, I fixed it, okay.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, that's, get out of the form, so I'm gonna complain because zip forms is getting so complicated, it's not working as well. And it's like, stop it, we don't need new features, stop. Anyway, so I'm just showing you how to get rid of this date here and go to back, so now I can go back to, I hit my space bar and I can go back to 2 days after acceptance of J1 inspection, period. And that's how you fill it in. So now we've got the third puka in our offer, which is the balance of the down payment, or if it's all cash, what's the cash that's coming. But our buyer doesn't have all the cash, so our buyer is going to bring in another $110,000. And so now we've got 125 total, so now how much is the loan?
$550.
Exactly, 550. And once you enter that, look at that, there's our offer price. Okay? I do think this is low, by the way. In the current market, this is cute enough, somebody's gonna scoop it up. I don't know if she's gonna get 725, but, yeah. It's just, I hate this part of the market, never mind my opinion. It just gets so expensive for this stuff, like, really? If we went somewhere on the mainland to buy a house for $725,000,
$125,000.
No, this would, and
this
my
would be
sister-
$79,000 somewhere, right?
Yeah.
This is like, yeah, it's just criminal.
My sister lives in Chattanooga.
So, yeah. So there's a second line here, and you might be wondering, what is this second line for? This second line is if your client were doing an 80-10-10, which means they're taking a second mortgage at the same time, right? You can learn about that in the finance classes coming up.
Is it only for that, second mortgages?
It's also, yes, it's only for, because that's what it is a second mortgage. Could be a purchase money mortgage. Could be that the seller is willing to carry $50,000. So now you have to add a purchase money mortgage addendum and put $50,000 in here by way of purchase money mortgage. Right, or seller financing. So that's what that's for. All right, the next section is addenda. And we've got it all filled in for you as not applicable. And it is always, always, always a good idea to review the addenda and make sure that there isn't something that you should be attaching. So you go, is this a 1031 exchange? No. Are we doing an agreement of sale? No. Is this an as-is? Well, we are trying to get a low price. Let's get an as-is addendum going in
I think
here.
it's in the remarks.
And it was in the remarks? It is? That cheeky girl.
Please include,
As-is addendum with all offers. There you go. So we're gonna put in the as-is addendum, right? And here's what I do. If I don't do this now, I'm going to forget. So I'm going to go and add the as-is addendum right now so that I don't forget. And I go up to forms. And I go to as-is, which is the very first thing. And I click it. And it adds it to my folder. Here it is. It opens it up.
That's cool.
And now I just have to click on the gray. And that list goes away. And I go, okay, here's my as-is addendum. Wonderful. And now I have to go back. Hit the back button. To get back to my other forms on my forms list. And now I can go back to my purchase contract. But now it's in my folder. I don't need to do anything else with it. It's already pre-filled, right? But if I don't do that right now, guaranteed I'm going to forget to pull the as-is addendum later. So do it now. All right, we were reviewing the list of addenda. Anything else? Distressed property, dual agency, early occupancy, FHA financing. Well, if this were an FHA loan, you would say instead of conventional financing, you'd go here and you would say FHA financing at prevailing rates and terms, and we would hit the FHA item here. So if your client is getting an FHA loan, or if they're getting a VA loan, you need to say so up here, and you add the proper addendum. Both VA and FHA have addenda. If you forget, the lender's gonna make you sign them. Right after you give the lender the contract, the lender's gonna say, this is an FHA loan, get me an FHA addendum. And you'll have to get it signed after the fact. So you might as well do it up front if you know.
This is
Okay? Now, I'm not gonna pull another addendum,
Oh, here, I'm sorry.
but you get the idea.
No, this, no.
All right, so now our description. 57 Ihea Place, Makawao is fee simple. And all that certain fee simple property consisting of approximately 12,500 square feet of land plus a 3-bedroom,
1,200.
what?
Not 12,000.
1,200 for the land.
Oh, okay, okay.
What?
I'm sorry.
No, it's 12,000. No, it's a quarter acre.
Yeah.
Um,
One bath.
plus a 3-bedroom, 1 bath. And plus, and this is the idea here. Other, I should actually take that out. Plus, if you've got something to add here, this is where you add it. Say, plus shed in backyard. Right? I'm gonna add that shed. Make sure I get that shed. And all other improvements thereon. So that would refer to the electricity hookup and to the water meter and to fencing, anything else that's on that property. So this is filled out for you. That's part of the beauty of a template. And when you're selling a condo, it's got the right condo verbiage, right? So very handy. All right, now we get to inclusions. And the place where we find our inclusions is right here. We have an auto garage door opener. I think that's a new, not even on the list, is it? All right, chandelier, swag lamp, dryer, drapes. So we've got, I'm assuming there's a cable outlet. Dryer, she said there's a dryer. Oven, photovoltaic system, pool equipment, range hood, range and oven. So it's not a cooktop, it's not an oven, it is a range with an oven. A cooktop is built into the counter, an oven is built into the wall, okay? So-
Marion, is there a way to make the X automatically? When I click on it, sometimes it seems like it fills in and sometimes I just type an X.
Don't I wish?
Okay,
Nice.
So, on this one, you gotta type the X, which I agree is totally annoying, right?
So you don't have to put NA in the
Yeah, you
rest of
do,
it.
so
You do.
I am just doing that, right? I'm just going down here
Why isn't it pre-filled with NA?
It should be, then you just.
Well, because some things have a lot, and so it becomes just as annoying to undo the NA as it does to do the NA, so
Can you just copy and paste the NA?
yeah.
you can, absolutely.
Yeah.
And also, you want to think about this, right, every time you do it.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
So just copy and paste it, that's what Corey just taught me. See that, I'm just copying and pasting it, so, smoke detector, solar water heater system, he's definitely got a solar water heater system, right? Sprinklers, washer, water heater, let's hope there's a water heater. Okay.
Oh, there is, I saw it.
Did you go there?
I looked at the pin.
What about a fridge? Is there?
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
one.
there should be a
It's
refrigerator.
like a giant sticking out.
I just didn't do it all. So you get the idea, this is where you get this information. And lately I've noticed a lot of agents aren't filling this in, lazy. And so you have to call them. So before you call them, double check that the listing has the inclusions. If not, you need the inclusions, right? Okay, next is inclusions of photovoltaic system and or security alarm. And so is there a photovoltaic system? I don't believe so.
Yes, there
Yes.
was.
No, I think that's a hot water heater
Oh,
system.
really?
Okay.
Do you think that's photovoltaic? Let's see what it says.
Owned
here.
2 PV system.
2 PV system, owned 2 PV system and solar water heater. Okay, so we've got an owned system, and so we want this information. We want the contract for that within 7 days of acceptance, and then we want the buyer to have how long?
Three?
Have you read those things? Have you read a PV contract?
No.
It is not easy because they're really obtuse and not clear. Now, this one claims to be owned, so let's hope that's true. Chris Musto is gonna be very clear about that because she's had a deal where that wasn't the case and it was very messy. So here's what happens. You say to a seller and you say, so you have a photovoltaic system. Do you own it or do you lease it? Oh no, we paid it off. Well, do you own it or did you lease it and pay off the lease? Oh no, we own it. Are you sure? Well, we paid it off. Okay, could you get me the documents so I can see what your status is with your photovoltaic system? People do not know the difference, okay? They could have paid the entire lease fee, which is 20 years of leasing in advance, but then you find out there's 12 years left on the lease and then it gets taken away. So now the buyer is buying a 12-year lease with the property, right? As opposed to it's owned outright. So you need to know that.
What is a photovoltaic system?
That's a great question. There's a picture of it. Those are, the panels on the roofs.
Oh,
You see,
solar panels?
Solar panels.
called photovoltaic. They're not called
Okay.
solar panels.
All
They're
right.
called
Didn't-
photovoltaic. There we
didn't
go.
know that.
Another. It's like hollow tile
Hollow
and.
tiles.
We
Now
call
I
them
know.
photovoltaics.
So you think 7 days to terminate? How long?
Well, I want to give my buyer enough time to review the contract and even call the company and ask for clarification. So I would ask for 7 days.
7, so 7
Yeah.
to 7.
Yeah. And then do we have any inclusions here? No, we've already asked for, right? We've already said the shed is included. But maybe I'll do it again. So maybe I'll go here and say, oh no, but I don't want them reviewed. I'm not asking for approval. I wrote it in the contract. So this is predominantly for vacation rental condos where there's furniture. And where there's furniture, we say, yes, the inclusions are included, and after 7 days, over here, you fill in this one, 7 days, to be provided to the buyer, and then the buyer has another 7 days to review those items. And if you're taking a listing where you're selling the furniture, I urge you to get the seller to be very clear about what's included and what's not included before you list, and get the stuff that's not included out of the unit, if you can.
Would you say a lot of sellers like to leave their furniture here since? No, it's a big one.
Only vacation rentals.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, do you have to NA, if it says NA at the beginning of the number E4, do you have to NA through it if you're not gonna
No.
use it? Okay, thank God.
No, however, you will see some that have numbers filled in, and if you NA it, you need to take the numbers out.
Okay.
Okay. All right, no exclusions either, and now we've got a closing date, and we've got it filled in down here in the second line because the first line is a date field again. Why don't we use a date for a closing date?
Because it may change.
Because, well, no, that wouldn't be, it can still change, either respective, but the reason would be that, it could take us a week to negotiate this contract, and if we have a 45-day closing, I just lost 7 days of my escrow process to the negotiations. So by writing it 45 days from acceptance, this negotiating time doesn't cut into my escrow time. Okay. So we go here and we put in 45 days, except we've got this seller who wants to have 30 days after closing, so it's gonna be closer to a 55-day. Let's see here. If I get final loan approval on the 30th day, and the seller wants 21 days to move out, that's 51. That means there's 4 days left for the unit to be vacant, right? And cleaned, and for my final walkthrough.
56 days.
I agree. Do you see how we just did that? Like, it doesn't have to be a perfect number. It has to be a number that makes sense here.
Comfortable
Right?
number.
Yeah, right. So we have a 10-day unilateral extension. So this right here is your right to extend. And either party may call this extension. Does not need a reason. You can just simply say, I just can't make it. I need to ask for this extension. And because both parties have agreed to it here, the other party can't say no. If you think it's gonna be too scary for you, like let's say the buyer is saying, okay, so our container is gonna arrive exactly on the 55th day. So I'm gonna wanna move our container onto the property on the day that it arrives, right? So that we can have our container there. So we don't want an extension. I mean, the seller's already taking 3 weeks to move out. We don't want another extension. That can happen, and now you go, okay, let's undo that, right? And take out the number, and we go, this one is to apply. Time is of the essence, and then I put an NA here. And time is of the essence means, no, I'm not signing a unilateral extension. Now, if you come to me at the very end and my container is on the property and you need 2 more days or, whatever, I'm not saying, it's always negotiable, right, between the parties. That's what it's up to. But this contract clearly says, don't even go there. I'm not agreeing to it up front. Little tougher, right? You can see that's a little tougher. All right, escrow, we've got that filled in for you, and if you want to use somebody else, feel free. We've got prorations filled into you. What's a proration? What gets prorated?
Rents, taxes, anything that has to be paid on a monthly
homeowner association, if there's some sort of an association dues or something like that, taxes.
Utilities, right?
Mm-mm. What happens when you move out of a place? What do you do with your utilities?
They have to stay on.
Yeah, they don't,
Okay.
yeah. So here's what happens on gas. This is the only one that's weird. So people have a big gas tank, right? And they have the service that comes and fills the big gas tank. So you let the gas company know. The gas company measures how much was there. Like they'll come 2 days before closing, 3 days before closing when the place is vacant. And they'll measure and see what's there. And that's the amount, whatever was used, that they get charged. They tell Escrow, and Escrow charges the seller for the used gas. And then the buyer has to hire the gas company again, and the gas company will have filled the tank. So now the buyer gets a full tank and pays from then on. So that's how the gas company does it. All right, closing costs. This is just another opportunity for you to review closing costs with your client. Keep in mind that here we are representing the buyer, and it says nothing on this list about insurance. I don't know why it doesn't say anything, but it doesn't. And a buyer is going to have to pay 15 months of an insurance premium in order to buy insurance for the property. So it's actually a chunky amount of closing costs. And we need two kinds of insurance here. What kind do we need?
Homeowners and title.
Well, that's true, we do have to buy title insurance, but that's not what I meant. What other kind of insurance do you have to carry on your property? Hurricane insurance. If you take a loan here, you are required to carry hurricane insurance. And hurricane insurance can be more expensive than homeowners insurance. So there are two policies, and both policies require the 15-month, right? They take a year's premium as a deposit, and then they collect the first 3 months worth. So, and then most loans have people's insurance and taxes built in to the impound account, right? And they get a little better interest rate when people do that. Now, some people I know don't like it that the bank does this for them. Are you kidding? It's awesome. You don't have to pay the bill. You don't have to worry about it. The bank takes care of it. And the bank is happy and reduces their interest rate to your client. So I totally recommend impound accounts to my clients. All right, next is notice on conveyance tax. So here we have to say whether the buyer is purchasing the property as principal resident. So see, here we get an X. I don't know why. You know why? I think you cannot put an NA into the X fields, that's why. If the X happens with a click, you can't, it's not an NA field. The other is if buyer is going to be not of the principal residence, right? In which case the tax rate to the seller is different, the transfer tax. And then if they're going to change any of this, they're going to provide written notification within 15 days after acceptance if they want to change this. Assessments. Assessments on a property that's in a neighborhood like this. I'm just thinking, what could happen in Makawao? What could happen in Makawao is the county comes along and assesses everybody and puts in a sewer system. That's what could happen in Makawao, right? That'll be interesting, but you know, or what if this is a neighborhood and the neighborhood wants to redo their sidewalks? Their sidewalks are just in horrible condition. And so the neighborhood association, if it's active, can say, we are charging every homeowner $1,000 a year for 5 years to pay for new sidewalks. That's an assessment. Okay.
And if they have information about that, you'll already have it, but if they don't, then you just advise people that they might experience that.
So it doesn't happen a lot on residential property, although it can happen on places like Kealani where there's very active homeowners associations and very draconian enforcers of those association rules.
Right.
But in Makawao and places like that, or Maui Meadows, or the older communities, Kula Glen, Kula 200, those
Right.
places have like 2-page long CCNRs. Those associations haven't been operating in a long time, so it's not likely to happen there. It happened in Makawa Ranch Acres out in Haiku, was on a private water system, and that private water system had bad piping. And the county had to step in and issue them all a water meter and replace all the piping. And so the federal government paid for it, the state paid for it, the county put some money in, but the homeowners also had to put some money in to make that happen. So stuff like that can happen. And they were all glad because their water was getting bad from the PVC pipes, and so that's how that got fixed. Yeah. So assessments. So the first one says, any lump assessment levied against the property prior to the acceptance date, the seller. You know, if there's a $5,000 lump assessment that was assessed against this property, you take care of it. So that's how we pre-fill this for you. The second one says, any assessment levied against the property prior to acceptance date, which is being paid over time. So that's this $80 a month thing that's going on for 5 months, right, or 5 years. So we know it was $1,000 a year for 5 years. That's a $5,000 assessment. Because I know what the assessment total is, I might change this and say seller has to pay that. Usually we don't know what the assessment is, so they come up a lot in condos. So the condo association is assessing everybody additional money beyond the maintenance fee for their reserves, their building reserves, right? To make sure they can afford the roof in 20 years, or a new elevator in 10 years, or a new swimming pool liner in 5 years, or whatever it is they have to do. They have a reserve study done, and that reserve study says if everybody pays in $247 a month, we will have enough to do these things, right? So there's this $247 assessment. On a condo, that should be prorated. Whatever the seller has paid up until that point, the seller pays, and from when the buyer takes over, the buyer pays. Because there is no end to that assessment. That assessment is ongoing reserve funding. Chances are it's going to go up, right? If there was a calamity at the pool, and the pool suddenly leaked and they needed to spend an additional or unexpected $20,000 to fix the pool, and everybody got assessed $850, that's a one lump assessment, and you go, you pay that. You pay it off, Mr. Seller. Make that go away. I don't want to take that over. Make sense?
Yeah.
So they're different, right? And the listing agent should be aware of these things. So if you get a seller who says, oh, I haven't been to my condo in 2 years, I have no idea what's going on. Do you read your board meeting minutes? Oh my gosh, no, I didn't even know I got them. Okay, thank you very much. So now you can see if you can get the board minutes, which you're going to get as part of the condo docs, and see if there's anything in there about assessments. And then you can also call the treasurer of the association or the president of the association and say, have you got any kind of assessments going on here? Is anything going on, right? To clarify this, if the listing agent doesn't know. I know, real estate is details, right? Yeah. But imagine yourself buying a condo, and a month later you get this, right, assessment that you didn't know about or whatever. Well, it would have been in the minutes that the association's talking about it. And then if there's any assessment levied against the property during the escrow period, the buyer can cancel. The buyer can say, I'm not taking on a $300 a month additional. No way, this is over my budget, I can't do it. So there's no puka to fill in there, that's just the way it is. If that would be newly discovered information, right? And a buyer always has the option to reconsider. Consents, we don't have a lot of consents. Consents come up on leasehold property. You need to get a new lease from the leaseholder for the leasehold property. Other than that, some condo associations require a consent, but it's very rare. Risk of loss passes to the buyer on day of recordation. Possession is at closing, and closing in Hawaii is the day of recordation, not the day that the money is delivered. It's a funny little thing. In contract class, you learned that a contract is finalized when somebody delivers the keys or the deed, and somebody else delivers the money, right? When those two things are delivered, that's your consummated contract. In Hawaii, we go, no, we want to make sure it's recorded, and then we'll give you your money and your keys. So we just delay for the recordation. And actually, it's a more secure way to do it, right? It's making sure that the thing is recorded. Keys are required, preliminary title report. So there's, of course, I'm going to the top of page 5, there is no deadline for the delivery of a title report because title is not a party to this contract. And sometimes title requires some research. And so it takes a little more time. So on the top of page 5, the buyers, once they get the title report, is given 7 days to review that title report, and the way this is filled out, if there's something wrong with the title report, the seller is given 10 days to fix it. Vesting and tenancy, what does vesting mean and tenancy? Do you remember? That is whether you take it tenancy in common or tenancy by the entirety or in severalty, right? Those things. And we leave that to escrow to determine if it's requested, the information is actually requested in the escrow contract of the buyer. So that's the buyer and escrow work that out together. All right, and that takes us to our financing contingency. The most common is that people have no contingency on their cash funds. So we've got that pre-filled for you. And what it says is the buyer agrees to provide verification of their cash funds within 3 days of acceptance. And then the seller has to accept those within 5 days of acceptance. And then it says, well, how are you going to provide that? Most common is a bank statement. What I've also recently seen a lot of is a verification letter from the lender. So the lender is going to verify the cash funds, right? Because the lender really cares, wants to make sure there's enough cash as the buyer is claiming. So you can also put this item that is just as legitimate and not make your buyer provide a bank statement to the seller. But now you got to ask that lender. Be sure, if you're going to do this, be sure to ask the lender. Say, hey, will you be verifying their cash? And I need a confirmation of that verification, if that's okay with you. Right? So you want to remind them, and you want to put that in your.
So that would be not a complete cash buyer. They're still getting a loan
Doesn't matter.
with the lender.
Doesn't matter.
Really?